Hello, today we're going to solve a practice problem. So the problem is something like this. The provided code stub reads an integer n from standard input. Okay. Now for all non-negative integers I less than n, we should print I square. So that's the problem. Let's try to understand exactly what the problem is asking using an example. So the input might be something like n is equal to 3. Okay, that's it. Just one integer n would be our input. What we see now is that for all non-negative integers I which are less than 3, so these would be 0, 1 and 2, right? For all these numbers I want to print their square on different lines. So 0 square is 0, 1 square is 1 and 2 square is 4. That's shown in this output here. So this is what I want my program to do. This is the input it should take, then it should, and that is the output it should return. So how do we do this? Let's try to see how to approach this problem, and let's try to develop an algorithm about it. So let's first discuss a little bit of idea about the question, like how should we approach it. So what the question asks us is that given the integer n, we want to print the squares of all the non-negative integers less than n, right? So what is the first non-negative integer? The first non-negative integer is 0, right? So we want to print 0 square, right? Then we have 1, so we want to print 1 square, then 2 square and so on till n minus 1 square, right? And so all of these are the squares of the non-negative integers before n, right? This is what we have to print. Now printing the squares directly might be a little tough, so what we can do is we can try to follow this sequence 0, 1, 2 and so on till n minus 1, right? What that means is I would like some kind of a variable, okay, let's say I, that first takes the value 0, then 1, then 2, then 3 and so on till n minus 1. Okay, and this once I have such a variable that takes these values one by one, I can simply print I square, right? Or I into I, right? So that should solve my problem. But how do we get some variable I to take these values 0, 1, 2, 3 one by one? We can use loops for this, right? This is what we discussed in loops, especially in for loops, that we can specifically use for loops to take some variable, say I, from one starting value in some increments. So the increment here is 1 till some ending value, right? Or till before some ending value. So yeah, so that's basically the idea. Now let's formally write down our algorithm. So the algorithm's first step is that we use a variable I that takes values 0, 1, 2 and so on till n minus 1, right? And then the second step is that for each of these values of I, we just print I square, right? So that's it. That's all that our algorithm is. Now to do the first step, we can easily do this step using loops, right? In specific, this is easier to do using for loops. So how would we do it using for loops? Because all we need is to assign the initial value of I as 0 and then keep incrementing I's value by 1. So that should be our update till before the number n, okay, or till the number n minus 1. So this process can be easily done using for loops, right? Because they inherently implement this counter variable mechanics. We can do it using while loops too. That is also simple. But yeah, so now that we've discussed the algorithm, let's move on to the implementation. So now let's try to implement our algorithm. So if there's any code stub given, we're going to remove it so that we know each and every line that we write out what it means. Now the input format given to us is that there's only one line, and that first line contains the integer n. Okay, so all we have to do is accept this integer n from the first line, right? We know how to do this really easily, right? We've seen this multiple times. All we have to do is n is equal to int input, right? Now after we've done this, we want a variable I to take these values 0, 1, 2 till n minus 1, right? So that means we need this variable I to take values starting from 0 in updates of 1 till before n. Okay, so we've seen how to do this using for loops and the range function, right? All you need to do is write for I in range 0 n 1, right? What this does is, as we discussed in the previous video, the variable I will start taking values from this starting value 0 in increments of 1, which is the update, till before this ending value n. Okay, so it will go till from 0 till before n, which means till n minus 1. Now once we have this for loop, inside this all we have to do is print I square. Now what is I square? I square is just I into I, right? So that's all we need to do. So we'll just print I into I in the body of the for loop, and that's it. That's all that our code is. So this should work now. Let's try to run it first. So it does pass on the sample case that they've shown here. So let's also try to submit our code finally. So we see that it passes on all the test cases they had. So that means our solution is correct. And yeah, so finally the title of this question is actually loops. Which is because it's just a preliminary question about loops. As you can see, we just all we did was use a single loop and printed something inside it. So yeah, thank you for watching. That's all for this video, and I hope it was clear. I hope it helped. If you guys have any doubts, please feel free to leave them in the comments.